Hi, my name is Victor, also known as Outrun Youth, and today I'll be breaking down the process of this artwork here. Jumping in, the first thing I always do is a simple block out to establish the composition and to get the fundamental elements in place, basically just to get the ball rolling. And the concept for this piece was an exiled king, so I needed an item to reflect that, and I thought a crown was very fitting, so I got started on that, and I'm just playing around with super simple shapes, adding in a solidify modifier and some subdivision. Yeah, and then I added in some easy materials just to get the feeling of what we're working with here. And yeah, I added in some light just to get a feeling of the scene, and to play around with what potentially the final product could look like. And yeah, after this, the first step usually for me is to work on the ground, and I usually do this by creating different vertex groups using weight paints, and then layering different particle systems on top of each other, and just until I get like that feeling that I want. I adjust the saturation and the darkness and lightness value of the assets individually. The same with the ground as well, so it all blends together nicely. After I kind of tinker around with it and I find something that I'm satisfied with, I move on to the castle in the back, and I'm just using a free texture here from Polyhaven. And what I'm doing here is basically just extruding, playing around with shape and size, just to kind of get like a rough feeling of what a castle looks like. I'm not going off of any reference here. I'm just playing around with what feels right. I'm not thinking too much about detail because I know that I'm going to cover up a lot of it with moss and with some foliage later on. It's also going to be obscured by shadow and volumetrics as well. So I'm not thinking too much about it, and this is a really great way to make it seem like you have a lot of complex structures when in reality it's just very simple shapes. After getting to a point where I'm kind of happy with everything, I need to work around the atmosphere to kind of get more of a feeling of what the castle will look like in the end. And so I'm just adding different layers of fog using just a simple volume shader, playing around with some noise textures and some gradients, and adding in some light to kind of illuminate the fog in certain areas. And usually a lot of people do this in the post-processing stage, but I like to do it in Blender. Once I had like a rough feeling of what the fog would look like, I went in and added in just right away added in the moss on the castle, just to get a better sense of what the end product will look like. And yeah, I'm using the same assets as I used in the foreground. I'm just playing around with scale. A lot of it will be obscured by shadow. Again, a lot of this is just fine-tuning at this point. Here I went in to my background is just a cube with a volume shader, and I usually create a particle system with a sphere that has an emission texture, and I just kind of spread that across the background to imitate stars. Here I encountered a problem. The thing when you're making a structure in the background and and you kind of obscure stuff. After or at some point, you're gonna end up having it lose kind of its character. People are gonna mistake like, what is that in the background? So what I did here was I went in and added a bridge of some sort that seems to have more detail than the rest of it. So it kind of creates this illusion of there being more detail across the board. So it reminds you of what it actually is. After the castle was done here, I went in with the character, or I wanted to work on the character, and I have a free character here from Sketchfab, and that I've added a rig to, and then a simple mesh or a simple plane with a cloth simulation to, and then a collision to the body of the character. And now I'm just basically running some physics simulations with the cloth to get that kind of cape or cloak feeling that I want. And this is kind of just trial and error, kind of starting off low poly and then building yourself up. So here I'm running the final bake for the final simulation, and yeah, so I thought this looks great. Sometimes this is not as straightforward, as easy. Sometimes it takes some time. I also just wanted to get a simple sword in here, just to get the feeling of what it would look like in the end. And now basically I went around the character, duplicating different areas of the mesh to create different parts of the clothing. So here I wanted to have a chainmail hood, and so I just kind of went around the character, duplicated out some of its mesh, and then added a chainmail texture. And right away I thought this looks great. And I did the same for the sweater at the top. Most of it is obscured by light. This is where light becomes your friend, because you can just hide so much so much detail, or lack of detail. Yeah. And I was kind of happy at this stage, so now it's basically back to fine-tuning things. I was working with this very, very specific green here that I wanted, and yeah, I feel like I got a good result. So now again, it's back to fine-tuning, and yeah, I'm playing around more with fog, with light, with the terrain. I had a problem here where the background, the castle elements, and the foreground wasn't really blending well. It was too stark, so I added in a kind of like a fog in the middle of the scene and had a more of a pink hue to it, which I feel like brought everything together more. And then I added some more, like a stronger light to highlight the crown and the character, because this was, it's the main element of the scene. It's the king, so he needed to be more visible. And after arriving somewhere that I was satisfied with, like I always do, I'm staring at the artwork again and again, going back, reworking things, staring at the artwork, going back, reworking things. Yeah, and there were certain parts there that I didn't like so much of the castle, so I was like, how do I obscure it more? And so I just added some tree assets from Botanic, and now I got started on the sword. Here I actually used a reference, and yeah, I've started to really enjoy hard modeling a bit more than I did before. I think there's no right or wrong in how many pre-made assets you use. I think it all has to do with the final product, how much effort you put into everything, if there's identity your own personality and your own touch to it. In the end, I feel like what you're doing is just contributing to the 3D ecosystem. But I also think, you should do what, you should try out the different facets of the program, and always improve in areas that you're not so good in. Here I used a wave texture. I think that was a cool solution to get more of this kind of layered leather feel to it. Again, I didn't need too much detail, so doing something simple as that kind of worked. And yeah, now basically every single element is in the scene. So again, I'm back to fine tuning, to making sure things look as good as they can look. So here I'm just kind of dividing the ground to kind of optimize everything a bit. So since the foreground is basically everything we see, you don't need it to be subdivided all the way in the back. So I kind of split it up and focused on the foreground to make sure it looks good. I added in some flowers just to get some kind of some variation in the grass, and yeah, I think we're nearing the end here. Again, just fine tuning, making sure it looks as good as it can, and yeah, I think that the final thing that I added was some eyebrows that you really can't see in the final render, but it did something. It felt right. Here I wanted to highlight the blade more, and whatever I did with the texture, it wouldn't really do it right, so I took a sphere and I added an emission shader and placed it off the scene so it reflected off of the blade, and I found that to really work well here. And yeah, that's it. So this was around 6 hours of footage condensed down to 12 minutes or so, but I hope you got something valuable out of it. I have some video ideas lined up, but if you have something specific you'd like me to cover, please leave a comment below. And yeah, that's all for now. See you in the next one.